Chapter 12. To the victor the spoils. Radnovich rushes forward, swinging his right arm with a backhanded swipe across the body. Jake hops backwards, reaching the edge of the platform and nearly losing his footing. The giant of a man steps in, punching with his other arm, and Jake is forced to rotate on his heels and spin along the edge and hope he doesn't fall. Radnovich pivots, punching again and launching a piston-like fist straight for Jake's face. The teenager dives forwards into a roll that propels him to his feet, ready to face Radnovich's next move. "You can keep jumping around all you want. All I gotta do is hit you once and this fight's over, kid," Radnovich boasts. "And if frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump their ass when they hopped, your point is? This match is mine. You can't evade forever." "I don't have to. All I have to do is score enough technical points and outlast you." Radnovich grins, Jake feeling a sharp rise in his opponent's strength like a spike in static discharge. He's been holding back. "Damn, that's not good for me at all," Jake worries. Radnovich lunges for Jake, clearing the distance between them in 2 steps. Jake jumps back, the giant swiping with another backhand. Jake winces in pain, having dodged the physical attack, but still having absorbed the brunt of its powerful shockwave. Jake's skin immediately bruises, and the teen drops to a knee, finding it hard to catch his breath. "Don't feel bad, kid. You held up a hell of a lot better than I expected. You get some experience under your belt, and you'll be a hell of a fighter one day," Radnovich says, surprisingly complimenting his opponent. "It's not over yet," Jake growls. He fights against the pain to stand up straight in defiance of the giant. Jake runs directly at Radnovich as fast as he can, confusing the larger opponent. "What's he doing?" Rusty shouts. "He has to fight the big guy from a distance. Being in close is suicide." Jake leaps up, kicking Radnovich in the side of the head with a hard roundhouse. The behemoth of a man is not amused. "Why are you wasting my time, kid?" he growls. Jake hops back, slightly unnerved. "All right. How about this?" He drives forward with a straight right jab with all of his power. Radnovich catches Jake's fist and squeezes, driving the teen to a knee in pain. Jake shouts out, feeling the bones in his hand being crushed. He again tries another kick, but Radnovich slams the teen against the ground and knees him in the chest. Jake is nearly knocked off the stage, but manages to crouch and skid to a stop just at the edge. The teen squints, each breath full of pain. "Not bad," Radnovich laughs. "Maybe you aren't completely worthless after all. Not everyone can take a hit from me like that." "I'm out of my league here," Jake thinks, trying not to panic. "This guy could seriously kill me if he wanted. He's holding back considerably, but even putting all of my force into my hits couldn't even stagger him." Not giving up, Jake again leaps at Radnovich, throwing another roundhouse kick to the face. Radnovich brings his arm up to deflect, causing Jake to push off against him into a backflip. Jake lands and immediately thrusts forwards, driving his fist into the giant's gut. Radnovich winces, but the blow isn't enough, and he reaches down, grabbing Jake by the shoulders. Jake screams in pain as Radnovich squeezes him tightly, holding him off the ground. "You should have known better, kid. You seemed like a smart one. Fighting me in close quarters is like trying to sneak up on a bloodhound while wearing meat sneakers. No way you're going to recover from this one," Radnovich says. Jake throws all of his weight into his legs, kicking Radnovich in the groin with both shins. The giant howls, releasing his grip instantly. Jake pivots, slamming his foot into the side of Radnovich's face. Radnovich crashes to the ground, shaking the entire stage. Jake is unrelenting, falling through with several fast jabs to the face as soon as Radnovich tries to sit up. Blood explodes from the giant's nose, lips, and cheeks as Jake's punches slam into him again and again. Radnovich throws his right arm out, uppercutting Jake in the stomach. The teen's eyes widen and he freezes, his skin going pale. Radnovich stands, blood hanging from his face in long strings. "You can't believe how impressed I am, kid," Radnovich coughs. "Pretty effective, but your punches don't have enough stopping power yet. With the opportunity that you had, you should have been able to end this fight, not give me one more punch to finish this." Jake's eyes become heavy, his mind fogging and becoming difficult to focus. Staggering forward a step, he has to struggle to keep himself from falling. "Come back again in a couple of years," Radnovich says, Those are the last words that Jake hears before everything becomes surrounded in darkness. Jake awakens on a cot in the first aid tent, his head still throbbing. Derek, Rusty, and Mitch sit around him. "What?" Jake mutters, rubbing his eyes. "You got knocked unconscious. For a good while, too," Derek replies. "I lost?" Jake whispers, confused and disappointed. "Yeah, you lost," Mitch responds, having to be the first one to drive the painful fact in. "What about third place?" Jake asks, his mind still clouded and his body aching badly. "No one could wake you. Terrence won by forfeit," Rusty responds. "So who won between Chin and Fee-Fi-Fo-Fum?" Jake asks. "Chin barely won. It was a long, grueling match that ended up being decided by points. Chin beat Rodnovich 6-4, Rusty says. Rodnovich stopped several times during the match to spit up blood. I think he was still feeling the effects of his fight against you. Who knows what would happen if they had fought at 100%, Derek adds. That would have been an awesome fight to see, Jake sighs. Don't be too hard on yourself. You did amazing. Got further than either me or Mitch. Rusty smiles, trying to comfort his depressed relative. Yeah, you totally came inches from going to the World Martial Arts Championships. That's something you should be really proud of, Derek says. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, you didn't. You lost, just like the rest of us, Mitch grins. Which means that you proved nothing. You didn't qualify for squat. He did better than you, Rusty shouts. But he didn't fight either guy that beat us. That means we'll never know if he didn't just get lucky pairings. You're an ass, Rusty growls. Mitch merely continues to grin, having attained exactly what he desired. While leaving, Jake passes Radnovich as the man sits at a picnic table eating a Polish sausage. Hey kid, come here, he shouts. Jake reluctantly approaches. You're something else. No amateur has ever lasted that long in a ring against me. You even managed to land a few good ones. Thanks, Jake replies. He's unsure why the man is complimenting him. It wasn't enough, though. I didn't even scratch the surface of your full power, did I? Radnovich laughs. Not a bit. He hands him a slip of paper with his address. You ever want some real training, come look me up. Jake doesn't reply, taking the paper and merely nodding before running back over to his mother. Aw, did you make a new friend? Anne mocks. Shut up, Mom, Jake groans. Jake sits on his roof, taking in the cool night air and thinking about the day's events. I tried my best and I still lost. That sure doesn't do much for the old confidence. Mitch was right, I didn't prove anything except that I'm still a loser. What if I'd faced Chen, or Terrence first round? Would I have been put out early too? Maybe I was just lucky after all. Damn it! I wish there was some way that I could prove Mitch wrong and shut him up. Jake's frustration with his older cousin grows and grows until he can no longer contain it, and he lets out a groan of frustration and throws his back flat against the roof, staring up at the celestial lights. I'll do something one day that will let everyone know how much I matter. But until then, I have to endure jerk-asses like Mitch. He sighs loudly, knowing that enduring is difficult. Brian Chen sits in his hotel room without his shirt on, flinching each time he tries to apply soothing ointment to his massive black bruises. I never thought a qualifying tournament would be so tough. I barely got through it intact. I really didn't think I'd see 3 other competitors that could see energy. There's no telling what the actual tournament is going to have in store if this much skill was just at a qualifier. The hotel windows suddenly open, a cold wind blowing into the room. Chen stands up, scanning for movement. Who's there? Chen asks, sensing a small flicker of energy in the room with him. You can't hide. I can feel your presence. That's part of the reason why we're here, Danny says, seeming to rise straight up out of the shadows between the locked door leading to the hallway. Chen instantly realizes that she has positioned herself deliberately to block him trying to escape the room. We? Chen asks, knowing she means that another is already in the room with them, but unnerved that he cannot sense them. She's referring to me, a deep voice says from behind. Chen pivots, throwing a punch, but the man, tall and muscular, catches his fist in his hand with ease. Chen struggles, but the stranger quickly applies pressure, crushing every bone in his hand. Chen screams in pain, but the man reaches forward with his other hand and cups it over his mouth to muffle the cries. "Begin, Danny," Elian says. Danny nods, pulling an old book bound in a faded leather-like material out from a satchel slung over her shoulder. She opens the Book of the Black Earth. "Salapan, dalku, esiru, elu istu, ina ana, habanato." "Great Sakari, who was once imprisoned, come forth into this vessel," Danny chants, dangling an ancient amulet on a golden chain in front of her. The amulet begins to glow brightly each time she speaks. Chen struggles, but his assailant kicks the back of his legs, dropping him to his knees. Danny continues to chant, walking closer and closer to him. "Do not struggle. You have been chosen to become the human vessel for the great Yamura. You should rejoice," Elian says, fear causing Chen to fight to break loose of his grip even more furiously. Danny reaches Chen, and the glow of the pendant is red hot, burning his skin before even making contact. He tries to scream, the flesh of his chest bubbling and dripping away. "Finish it," Elian orders her, tightening his grip on the young man. Danny places the amulet against Chen's chest and continues to chant. He screams in agony, thrashing free from his attacker. Chen digs his fingers into his chest, trying to pry the foreign nightmare off of him, but to no avail. His flesh boils and splits from the unnatural heat. A black oil-like substance begins to leak from the amulet and absorb in through the opened-up skin. His eyes suddenly explode, and he throws his head back in unyielding torment. Danny backs away in a mixture of fear and disgust, wiping the bits of eye matter off her face. A black flame engulfs him, devouring him until he is nothing more than a burned-up husk. The amulet drops to the floor smoking. The black oil withdraws back inside. "It obviously was not him," Danny says quietly. She feels the stabbing ache of conscience inside and tries to ignore it. "You made a mistake. He was not the one meant to become the vessel of Yamura," Elian growls, upset with the girl's failure. "He won the tournament. I figured whoever won was going to be our candidate. I would never have thought the vessel would be one of the losers." Elian backhands Danny, knocking her to the floor and busting open her nose so that it quickly begins to bleed. "I don't need your disrespect. Lord Yamura's vessel could just as easily have been someone who felt it beneath them to even participate in the tournament. I need you to mend your error, find the correct vessel, and redo the location spell." "Yes, Master," Danny whispers, submitting to the will of her teacher in both the martial and mystical arts. Jake and Rusty stand in the yard tossing a football back and forth. Nearly a full day has passed since the tournament, and many of the weekend's events still remain fresh on Jake's mind. Gator and Sue are inside making dinner, and Derek is upstairs playing on guitar. Mitch is off drinking with his buddies and running his game on inebriated female underclassmen, eager for acceptance from the in-crowd. "When I was fighting in the tournament, did you see anything strange?" Jake asks, tossing Rusty the football. Rusty is unsure how to respond to his cousin's inquiry. He recalls Radnovich's punches causing damage to objects without physically making contact with them. He also remembers how tense his father was during the fight. It was almost as if Gator could see something that Rusty himself could not. "What do you mean?" Rusty finally asks, frowning. His cousin is really beginning to weird him out. "Did you see any kind of light or glow?" "Glowing? Why would I?" "I just thought maybe you could. You're strong, but I guess you haven't naturally developed that ability yet," Jake says, almost whispering to himself. "Start making some sense here. What ability? What are you talking about?" "Our energy. While we were fighting, our aura should have been visible to anyone who could see that spectrum. Your father could, so I just assumed that you might as well." Rusty pauses, the talk of energy and auras feeling unreal to him. Hours spent watching kung fu movies and Japanese animation rise to the surface. "All of that stuff is real?" Rusty asks, picturing massive aerial battles of spiky-haired superheroes firing blasts of energy at each other and yelling loudly in Japanese. "How? How do you see it?" Rusty asks, shaking off his anime daydream. "I don't really know how completely. I just sort of started seeing it naturally. That day when we were all playing football before the Wrestling pay-per-view, actually. I could see your aura adapting to Mitch's movements, and then I just started seeing everyone else's, too. Do you see it all the time? No. Only when a person's energy rises to a certain agitated state, or if I focus on it really hard. Rusty contemplates this for a second. How can you see these auras? Jake shakes his head slowly. When I touched Jake that day and I was shocked, was that because of his energy? Rusty wonders. Conco, Rockland, Indiana. Night Supervisor Kevin Spaulding walks down the production lines with one of his lead engineers, Jake's father, Ian Stewart. Ian is tall and lean. His build betrays a timid face framed with glasses. His hair is shorter than his son's, and slightly darker. Having worked for Conco for nearly a decade, Ian is the go-to man for Spaulding on their shift. Approaching Spaulding with a list of issues that need addressed, Ian holds himself with an air of confidence. Should he approach his supervisor with weakness, he knows that nothing will be accomplished. The problem we keep having with the extrusion lines is getting worse. Have you still not gotten maintenance to address the issue? Ian asks, adjusting his glasses. I have. Their workload is just very full right now, Spaulding replies casually. This is a serious problem. If extrusion goes down, all production halts. I know how things work, Ian. Do you? Sometimes I wonder. What was that? Spaulding barks back, causing Ian to shirk away and remain silent. Go up to extrusion and reset the machines. That'll give us another 2 hours of production before the problem sets in again. Ian nods, leaving into the hallway. If he wasn't such a skinny nerd, I'd send him off to Conco's experiments. An asshole is always challenging me, but there's no way he'd ever last. There isn't a macho bone in his body, Spaulding thinks. Ian walks up the stairs to the extrusion floor, where he finds it empty of any personnel. Hello? Hey, you guys aren't supposed to all go on break at the same time. Ian shouts into the emptiness. No wonder this floor is always having the most problems. The representative from the Chicago branch appears behind Ian in a flash of shadows. The production staff of this floor have been relocated. The representative hisses. All of them? How can we function without an extrusion line? Your supervisor missed a crucial deadline. I was forced to act when he was unable. What? I don't think this is the way to go about cost-cutting. Not cost-cutting. More like shifting resources around. Well, we'll need more resources shifted to extrusion. Without this line running, we can't produce any equipment. The representative smiles, revealing sharp fangs in place of normal teeth. Ian backs away deeper into the room, frightened by the creature in front of him. What are you? You aren't normal, Ian whispers, his back bumping against a machine which turns it on. The large machine whirs into life, mixing up melted plastic components in a massive vat and pumping it through a labyrinth of water-cooled piping. I think you've seen more than enough, the representative says, taking a step towards him. Spaulding hears Ian scream just seconds after the extrusion lines spring into life. Thinking that Ian has caught his hand in a production machine or something, Spaulding runs upstairs to the extrusion floor, only to find the Chicago representative standing over Ian's motionless body. What are you doing? Spaulding whispers in horror. You're late. We have received no test subjects. You didn't give me a deadline, Spaulding shouts, completely offended by the creature's actions. Immediately was the implied time frame. Spaulding slowly reaches behind his back, a Glock 9 handgun tucked into his belt. The familiar weight of the sidearm comforts Spaulding, who worked for IMPD before being personally selected by Antonio Khan for his management skills and ability to handle even the strangest situations. The representative throws his arms out, both extending into long spears. The transformed arms pierce Spaulding through each shoulder before retracting back to normal. Unable to react in time to dodge, Spaulding drops to his knees. Blood swells out around the puncture holes, and the gun drops out from the man's hands, as he cannot reach any of the muscles in his body any longer to get them to respond. Your supreme ineptitude has run its course, the representative declares, raising one arm which transforms into a curved blade. You were tasked with bringing me test subjects. All you've been able to produce are excuses. A new supervisor in whom results can be guaranteed is now required. Elian Schaefer stands outside of the hotel room of Damon Rodnovich with 4 of his top students. It was obviously not Chen who won the tournament who was our target, Elian says. So the next logical choice is the runner-up. Could it have been one of the other competitors? Maybe this guy or Chen was just really good fighters. Maybe our target has high potential but hasn't had enough experience, Danny suggests. Elian raises an eyebrow. Do you have someone particular in mind? Klaus begins to laugh. She thinks the vessel might be a classmate of ours. Oh? And why is that? Danny is uncomfortable being put on the spot. I don't know. I just got a strange feeling while watching him fight. You have strong intuition, Elian says. I trust your instincts above any of my other students. If you wish so, continue to observe him and report back to me anything that may be useful to us. Yes, master, Danny says, bowing. Rodnovich speaks from the other side of the door. What the hell do you punks want? Elian is surprised the man knows they're outside. Mr. Rodnovich, could we have a moment of your time? Rodnovich opens the door and looks his visitors up and down. The girl can come inside, but the rest of you aren't my type. Danny begins to shake in anger, waiting for Elian to give her a sign to attack. Elian pauses, sensing something oddly familiar about the large man. I don't think he's our target, he whispers. Another figure inside the hotel room steps into view. Elian instantly recognizes that the other man's clothing bears the tattered pieces of the crimson robes of an Endelgian master. Long time no see, the magician says. Glad to know you've survived this long. Those cocksucking knights can be relentless. I know this man, Elian thinks, shuddering. He's the rogue magician, Adrian Scrimauer. Why is he here? And what connection does he have to this brute? Radnovich seems annoyed. You know these chumps? Scrimauer nods. The man was once an apprentice to a good friend of mine. I heard he'd went AWOL, but that was the last I knew. Torres and I don't really talk much anymore, what with me being a wanted fugitive and all. Radovich grunts in agitation. More of your magic bullshit. You can keep that hassle. You're too dumb to learn it anyway, Scrimauer replies. I could snap your neck before you even thought about casting a spell. Elian slowly backs away in fear. We're out of our league here. These 2 men are titans of power. Even suppressed, their energy is smothering. He notices that Danny, too, is sensitive to their power. Come. We should go while they are arguing. Danny nods, her brow glistening with sweat. Yes, master, I agree. In Elian's car, the man sighs with relief. His less sensitive students are confused. What was that all about, Sensei? Klaus asks. You sensed it too, did you not? Elian whispers to Danny. The other presence there, she replies, within the large man. Elian nods. Rodnovich cannot be our target because he's already the vessel to another dark spirit. Lieutenant Dwayne Rollins of Indianapolis Metropolitan Homicide adds the file of the newest victim of the spontaneous combustion killer to his growing case file. Brian Shen, 28 years old, experienced martial artist. He was found in his hotel room, burned from the inside out like all of the previous victims. Lieutenant Rollins sets another sheet of paper beside the case file. This one is a list of all participants of the recent World Martial Arts Championships qualifying tournament. 19 victims in 5 years. The only thing linking the homicides together being that the victims have all been males in peak physical condition. Many times his captain has suggested the case be moved to cold case, but Rollins has refused each time. The case has become almost an obsessive need for him. If he cannot find the perp and bring them to justice, what good is he or any of the other officers of IMPD? Lieutenant Rollins segregates the list of participants by who fought Brian Chen in the tournament and who did not. He will target those who did fight him first, hoping that one of them will match the single description of their perp. 5 years ago, a security camera from the apartment of victim number 6, William Holden, captured the image of the large man, 6'3", 220 to 230 pounds, entering and leaving within an 8-minute window around the time of the killing. He was the only person to enter or leave 5 minutes before or after the time of death. Brian Chin defeated DJ Rodnovich in the finals, Terrence Baker in the semifinals, Rusty Rigsby in the quarterfinals, and Corey Scott in the opening round. Also sitting on his table is the only criminal record of the 4 men comprising of List A, Damian Rodnovich. In 1987, Rodnovich was arrested for domestic abuse on his then-girlfriend Amanda Ortiz. In 1990, he was again arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct. In 1991, he was again arrested for domestic abuse after breaking the jaw of then-girlfriend Samantha Carver. Also in 1991, he was arrested for assault after a bar fight in which 3 men were hospitalized. In 1992, he was arrested for domestic abuse for breaking the arm of then-fiancée Samantha Carver. In 1993, he was listed as prime suspect in the disappearance of fiancée Samantha Carver. No evidence was ever submitted, and it was moved to cold case in 1995. In 1996, he was arrested for DUI and later charged with possession of marijuana with intent to sell. 3 Ziploc bags were found in the glove compartment of his Jeep at the time of his DUI arrest. This guy is a real winner, Lieutenant Rollins thinks with sarcasm. Nothing else. Maybe I can pressure him about the 93 disappearance of his fiancée to get him to talk. Lieutenant Rollins moves to his computer and begins to do a record search to see if anyone named Amanda Ortiz went missing between the years 1987 and 1993. He discovered shortly that a Jane Doe was found in the Terrapin River, south of Dorriton, in May of 1988, who was identified by her mother as 24-year-old Amanda Ortiz of Birmingham. Radovich may have not won the martial arts tournament, but he's winning my competition for prime suspect now. The sounds of loud knocks at the door arouse Jake from his sleep. He stumbles into the living room to see a police officer standing on the porch. "Can I help you?" Jake asks, opening the door with a prolonged yawn. "Is your mother home?" The officer asks. "No, she's working, but you can talk to my dad. Hang on." "Son, I'm afraid this is about your father." "What?" Jake whispers, running to the window to see that his father's car is absent. "Where is he? Is he okay?" His supervisor, Kevin Spaulding, was found dead by a janitor last night. The entire production and extrusion crews, including your father, have gone missing. "You can't be serious," Jake stutters, filled with shock. Jake's skin becomes clammy and he's forced to sit down as not to pass out. "Now, just because he's missing doesn't mean he's hurt or even that he's under suspicion of any wrongdoing. We just want to find him, and the others, and find out what the hell happened last night," the officer says. Jake nods slowly, fearful of what may have become of his father. The officer hands Jake a business card. "Call us if you hear anything. We'll go to your mother's work and talk to her next, so the pressure's not on you. If we're lucky, he's contacted her about where he and the other engineers are." The world feels turned on its axis. The surrealism of the situation makes Jake sick to his stomach. His father could very well be dead, murdered by some psychopath on a factory rampage. It could have been a disgruntled employee, or just some passing nut job with an itch for wholesale slaughter. It could have been that his father saw a coworker kill the supervisor, or that they all witnessed him die and fled in fear. This doesn't seem likely to Jake, but it sure as hell beats the alternative. 1/2 step away from being an orphan. Katal-Takuk, 8000 BC. A pale, blue-skinned figure with long horns and piercing red eyes runs through the narrow stone streets, blood dripping from his clawed fingertips. "Demon!" someone shouts. The figure ignores the screams and fear-filled outbursts. He can only think of one thing right now, and that is survival. Yamura ducks into an open house and throws his back against the wall, trying to suppress his energy. With his slender build and pale blue skin, Yamura appears less threatening than some of his other compatriots, but this is misleading. One look into the blood-red eyes would scream for you not to underestimate him. Not all Sakari possess horns, but Yamura's noble bloodline carries with it that particular trait. Long horns spiral from the sides of his head and taper off into sharp tips, which he has used to pierce his own ears in a ritualistic style. His hair is black and oily looking, perfect match for his unsavory personality. That damned human is still tracking me. He already killed Rivius' scouting party. He killed Gushbar and Udu, and managed to separate me from Hui and Inyana's regiment. I never thought that a human could be such a threat. All of our information about this world was flawed. The likelihood that we happen to appear nearby one of the cities that contains such a powerful warrior is slim. No chance is not a factor. Statistically, there must be at least dozens of humans close to this one's strength all over the world if we happened upon one such as him almost immediately. A woman shrieks in terror, entering the living room to see the Sakari hiding in it. Yamura turns, quickly rushing the woman and driving his arm through her chest while covering her nose and mouth with his other hand to silence her screams. Yamura waits until the woman goes limp beneath him, and then drags her to a corner and out of sight from the doorway. Let him come. I shall be ready for him, Yamura thinks, trying to calm his nerves. Enkidu goes house to house, trying to scour for any traces of the escaped Sakari general. Enkidu skids to a stop in the street, catching sight of a young boy shivering in terror in the corner between two small houses. "Did you see the demon?" Enkidu asks, his hand sliding to his sword's grip. The boy points across the street to another house. Enkidu nods, drawing his blade. Enkidu rushes the house, kicking the door in, and pivots, slicing to his left as he senses the Sakari's energy climbing in surprise. Yamura howls, a line of blood exploding from his shoulder and down across his right breast. Enkidu thrusts forwards, Yamura hopping to the side and slashing out with his own claws. Enkidu brings his sword up, deflecting Yamura's slash, and quickly thrusts his free hand forwards, striking the Sakari in the chest and sending him spiraling backwards. Enkidu takes a step in, slashing horizontally with his sword and cutting into Yamura's midsection. Yamura shouts out in pain, blood spraying from his wound as he desperately clutches it and applies pressure. "You do not belong in this world, demon. This world cannot be worse than mine. It's better, and that is why you must not remain. Your evil taints all which is good," Enkidu says, glancing at the corpse of the woman lying on the floor. "Your murder will know no end until you are stopped. You humans kill out of passion, anger, fear, and jealousy. Is it truly so evil that I kill to survive? When you do not belong in this world, yes, it is wrong." Enkidu lunges, slashing several times quickly. Blood splatters erupt from various points on Yamura's chest, sides, and neck, forcing the Sakari to drop to his hands and knees. "You cannot have this world," Enkidu says, raising his sword to cleave Yamura's head. "There is no world for me. I merely exist in those of others," Yamura whispers, his spilt blood beginning to sizzle on the floor. A thick steam slams into Enkidu's face as Yamura's blood evaporates into a powerful wall of heat. Yamura rises up, slashing Enkidu across the chest, and past him back into the street. Enkidu holds his chest and curses in anger, his quarry having fled successfully for now. "He's coming for you," a voice echoes inside of Jake's head. "You have been chosen to be his vessel. It can only be you. Yamura, the Dark General, is returning soon. Prepare his way." Jake sits up, a scream nearly escaping his throat. The entire scene is still vivid in his mind. The teenager feels as if ice is flowing through his veins, and he shivers. He finds it odd that he's so cold, while he's obviously covered by a sheen of thick sweat. Do night terrors just suddenly appear? I figured that you had to be born with them or something, but this shit is straight making me scared. Why do I keep having dreams about this Yamura? Jake gets out of bed and goes to wash his face off in the bathroom. He pauses at the sink, staring for a moment at his reflection in the mirror. The teen's visage is gaunt, and he has dark rings under his eyes. Guess I haven't been getting much good sleep lately with all these weird-ass dreams. Maybe I need to talk to someone about this. He puts that idea aside quickly. Yeah, the last thing I need is to be put into a funny farm and go on a strict diet of happy pills. No thanks. I'll figure this problem out on my own, thank you very much. Lieutenant Rollins stands across from Damian Rodnovich as the large man sits in the questioning room with an annoyingly large grin on his face. "Why are you smiling?" Lieutenant Rollins asks, becoming irate at the suspect's smug attitude. "You're going to be locked away for a very long time, asshole." "You keep saying that, but you don't have any evidence." "After I lost the tournament, I was pissed off and got shit-faced at some bar downtown. You can ask around. I made quite the ruckus." Radovich begins to laugh. "I'm sure everyone there will remember me." Lieutenant Rollins makes a note to check up on his alibi. "What about your ex-girlfriends? Amanda Ortiz and Samantha Carver. Those whores, what about them?" Radovich leans back in his chair. "Look, Mandy ran out on me with some dickhead truck driver, just like I told the cops before. I didn't like the guy, but no one seemed to think that I was one to talk." He shrugs. "Samantha skipped out on me too to go live with her mom after I busted her smart mouth one too many times." Radovich finds reliving that particular memory humorous and chuckles to himself. "She's probably still down south. Why don't you go ask her yourself? I've never killed anyone." "I intend to," Lieutenant Rollins says, anger boiling inside of him. "You can leave, but don't go skipping town until we say so. We may need to bring you in again." "I don't even live in this state," Radovich says. "You can't hold me here. If you want to get a hold of me, then you can contact the local authorities." "If that man isn't a killer, all of my instincts as an officer are wrong," Lieutenant Rollins thinks, sitting down. "Sir, you're going to want to see this," an officer says, stepping into the room. Lieutenant Rollins follows him out, and is pointed to a television screen at the receptionist's desk. "It's been all over the news for the last half hour." The young woman on the news describes the scene of the grisly burning death of the martial artist named Terrence Baker. "Find out where this happened and get in touch with the unit investigating. I want all the information they have immediately," Lieutenant Rollins says. "I'm going to catch you and make you pay for every one of these murders." Radovich leans his head out of the room, trying to see the television. "Is that another one of the combustion killer's victims? Man, you guys sure are screwing the pooch on this case. How many years you been tracking him? 6? 8? Damn, you all suck at your jobs." Lieutenant Rollins balls his fists in anger, but tries to swallow his emotions back down. If Radovich is their perp, the last thing they need is him being released on a technicality, due to him losing his temper. "You a fan?" "Nah, not really. I was never much of a fire guy. Seems like a pussy way to kill if you ask me. A real man would handle his business with his fists, like how you handled your business with Ortiz and Carver." Radovich laughs. "Nice try, but I don't know what you're talking about." "We're going to be watching you, Mr. Radovich. I think you're hiding something very sinister, and I will uncover your secret." "Don't get too hung up on me, or you might pass up your killer altogether." Lieutenant Rollins moves in close, only inches from Radovich's face. "I think I'm looking at him right now." Radovich admires the detective's guts. Most people cower in fear of his imposing stature and build. "It'll be a shame if you invest all your energy into the wrong lead and someone else gets killed. I bet that would weigh something heavy on your conscience. How many other deaths are you burdened with? How many people has he killed since you started trying to catch him? If only you'd been a better detective, how many of those people would still be alive?" "This isn't over," Lieutenant Rollins promises. "We'll have another chat." "Doubtful," Radovich says, walking into the hallway. "I'm betting you're going to have your hands full soon, while I'm going back home for some R&R. I'm a little sore from fighting in that tournament after all, and I do have the championships to look ahead towards. Don't try dropping off the grid. I will find you if needed." Radovich laughs. "You have my home address, and you can find me any time. If you want to leave your badge and gun at home, maybe you'd like to spar with me a little. Bet I could teach you a thing or two that might be useful should you run into that combustion killer." "There's nothing a scumbag like you could teach me that I'd ever need to know," Lieutenant Rollins growls, close to losing his cool. Radovich merely smiles, heading for the door. "Suit yourself, but I think it's a good offer. The killer's sneaky and underhanded. You've had such a difficult time finding him. It's almost as if he's using magic to evade your detection."